We're obviously at the All big fans of journalism and Cooney and everything that goes on here. So thanks for having me. I guess the best thing to do is sort of just I'll talk a little bit about the All Network and who we are, and sort of what our sites look like, and then I'll go through my 3 tips, and then we can talk a little bit about monetization, and some of that'll be in my tips. So what the All Network is. The All Network was founded by 2 former Gawker editors about 4 years ago. Literally, the 4th year anniversary was on 4/20, so it's been since 2009. And they were professional content creators, professional bloggers that ended up deciding to make their own blog. And they sort of went into it saying, like, we don't know what's going to happen. We're going to see what's going to happen. They'll tell you that. That's what they say. And so they started blogging, and one thing led to another, and they got a big audience, and so they started to figure out how to monetize it. And I reached out to them. I used to work at a company. In the history of web monetization, there's a company called Federated Media. It's really interesting. That I actually started my career there too, so it's near and dear to me as well. But if you look at like any independent big publishing company, with the exception of maybe like the Huffington Post, basically every single one of those organizations has been represented at Huffington Post and had them sell advertising at some point. And that's actually, it's not every single one, but like, a lot of the big names: Dig, TechCrunch, Mashable, Business Insider. They also did a lot with sort of like the mommy vlogs or the female-focused stuff. So like Deuce, Confessions of a Pioneer Woman. BoingBoing.net has always been a Federated Media staple. And so the All started working with Federated, and that went really well. And then, and now we have a sort of a business model that's diversified. It's basically, we're not direct selling like Chris was talking about a lot. Like, we're sort of working with a lot of different networks. So we'll get into that in a second. So back to what the All Network is. So Alex and Corey started the all.com back in 2009, and then since then we've launched 4 more sites. So the sites are the all.com, which I talked about, which is sort of like news, original commentary, analysis, funny stuff. We publish about 10 times a day. We have a female-focused site called The Hairpin, which is launched by Edith Zimmerman, who's an amazing writer. We have Splitsider.com, which is the business of comedy. So it's a really unique site, and like comedy's sort of blowing up right now. So that's a really cool site if you're into comedy. It's sort of like it's not always funny, but it is funny sometimes, and it's like a lot about like what's going on in the writers' room at Community, or like what was great about Louis C.K.'s recent comedy special. So it's the business of comedy, variety for comedy, if you will. And then we launched the Billfold, which is personal finance for people who don't really think about finance. So it's sort of like cool stories about how to spend your money most effectively, and then really interesting human interest pieces. One that we just had that did really, was read a lot by a lot of people was how does a single mom who has 3 kids, work with a $40,000 a year salary? And so that was like a really interesting piece that did well. And it was an exploration of how finances affect people's lives. And then finally, the Wirecutter, which was launched by Brian Lamb, who used to be the editor-in-chief of Gizmodo, which is like, it's a phenomenal site on its own. Just by like, basically, it's what happened in the tech blogosphere was that everyone it was like a page view arm race. So everyone was pumping out 50 posts a day, and it was like search engine optimized, SEO'd out the wazoo. Samsung 654-321, and like, so that you would get clicks. And so Brian was a part of that, and he said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just going to create the site that tells you what gadgets to buy. So, there's only one review of the best computer to buy. There's only one review of the best, I have it up. So there's a review of, the best TV to buy, the best juicer. And so there's a lot of stuff. It veers off from just straight electronics, but it's really interesting. And here in this site, not only do we sell advertising, but we also sell, we don't sell, but there's affiliate links involved. So the affiliate link business is very interesting if you are involved with a product-driven business, and we can talk a little bit about that. So that is the All Network. It's those 5 sites. I'm the publisher. Another name for that may be business manager. So, I sold at Federated. I actually sold at the Huffington Post, and now here I'm selling and sort of, helping the sites to run smoothly from a business perspective. So that's that. If you guys have any questions while I'm going, please do stop me. So I'll go to my tips. Like if you're a publisher, um, and you're like, oh, John, how do I make a publishing business? This is what I would say to you. I don't normally have three P's, but three P's sort of came out. So the first is you got to have patience. Success is never overnight. And there's like this awesome saying that I like, which is time plus pressure equals diamonds. And so you sort of just got to keep doing it. And, that sort of leads to the second tip, which is passion. These sort of two work in conjunction with each other because you got to be passionate about what you're doing because it's going to take a long time to sort of start making a lot of money, and so it's like really frustrating. So if it's not a labor of love, you're going to get super frustrated. So, and I've seen that happen. And the All was a labor of love, and so they basically made no money for the first 2 years, and then eventually, the stories got picked up. They had a big audience. We cut the right business development deals. All of this stuff sort of came together, and the funny thing about it is too, you never know when it's going to come. Like the Inside Climate story was amazing. I love that story, and from a monetization standpoint too, because we talked a little bit about scale. But I mean, I think Inside Climate opportunity, especially today, like 8 years ago, you couldn't have sold advertising without scale. But today, I think you can because production value is like so important for brands because brands sort of have their own distribution. So if you can help brands produce great content, you're going to be in a good seat, and they're going to want to borrow some of your brand equity. Um, so patience, passion, because you got to keep doing it. You never know when the success is going to come. One day it's just going to hit. And then persistence, which is sort of like the same thing. So the all model, we do sell directly to brands and agencies a little bit, but a lot of our revenue comes from working through other publishing partners. So like the best thing to do is to get acquainted with the advertising ecosystem if you can, because it is a complex machine, and like it's not like complex like rocket science, but it's just like weird. Like there's all these different decision makers, and the money flows from the brand down to the publisher, and it hits like maybe 5 to 7 different middlemen along the way. And so like there's all these different places where you can sort of pop in and you can be like, oh, this is where my organization sits, and this is how we get the money that's flowing down. And so the All sits in a unique spot, sort of working with a bunch of different partners. So I get ad networks is a good way to call them resellers, and so we have like a lot of biz dev partners who want to work with us because of what Alex and Corey and all of our other editors have done. They've created a really phenomenal brand that people want to work with, and so we work. That's where we sit specifically. We're going to do a lot more direct selling, hopefully, in the future. And those relationships take time, too. And so, just because you get into an ad network, it doesn't mean they're going to start selling for you right away. You have to sit back and relax for a little bit, and then eventually they'll be like, oh, right, like we have this site in our network, like let's sell that. And then that's a selling process in of itself. I think that's a big thing that I've tried to, because I've been on both sides, like as a seller at an ad network and as a publisher in an ad network. And like if you ever do get into an ad network, I would definitely say like treat the ad network as best as you can. Like it's frustrating to work with them a lot, and you sort of need to, you need to like totally guard your brand. Like that's why you're there, and you can't do anything that would ever violate your integrity. But at the same time, they're a customer. They're just as much a customer as an ad agency would be or a direct brand client would be. So if you're a publisher, I would definitely say be cool with your ad network, and that is that. And so so that is sort of like how we monetize. Those were my 3 tips. You guys have any questions yet? Yeah, go ahead.
You tell us.
My name's Serena. I'm creating a little startup. I won't get into it, but it's called Dream Siren.
Cool.
I was just wondering how you deal with the experience of not knowing what's going to happen. It was one of the first things that you opened with, and I think it's one of the most critical things for a startup. So I just wonder what your thoughts were on that.
You gotta have faith. I mean, that's a great question. I honestly, it's like faith is like I don't know. You just like if you believe in your product, it's gonna be great. Like people will come. You just gotta believe that moment's eventually gonna come where like you get that one link on the front page of Yahoo, or you get that one ad sales deal where it's gonna be all right. But I mean, there's definitely a lot of uncertainty. Like, I sort of liken it to walking on a tightrope to a certain extent. Like, we're on the tightrope and we're walking and we're not falling, but walking on a tightrope is like, it's sort of like a precarious sort of situation. But so I would just say, believe in your vision and keep on going. Not to sound too motivational speaker, but
Hi, I'm Ranjan,
yeah.
and I'm a fellow here at the Town Night Center. I kind of wanted to ask you about affiliate links.
Sure.
Because with the Wirecutter, I feel okay when I see one there, but I've
Totally.
seen sites like the Next Web, and
Oh,
they've started incorporating them into app reviews, and
interesting.
it doesn't really come off, or it looks a little kind of pushy. So
Yeah, I mean, it's a test. The affiliate link business, by the way, like what happened with the Wirecutter was beyond my wildest expectations in terms of revenue. There's a really great article that Brian Lamb did, that David Carr wrote about Brian Lamb and the Wirecutter. So like Google that and check it out, because it just sort of talks about what a success it's been. Not like a corporate Coca-Cola success, but for a small business, it's been phenomenal. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that's just the editorial sensibility and like weaving it um, in the right way. I haven't seen what the Next Web's doing, but it sort of makes sense that they're trying to do that, because like affiliates, and I mean, sort of led by the Wirecutter, have felt like a sort of solid resurgence. I mean, Nick Denton from Gawker sort of he like wrote a memo that like obviously leaked, and he was like, we made $70,000 in a day without even trying at Gawker and affiliate. So it's like totally a monetizable and effective way to monetize. And so I think experimenting with affiliate links is definitely something that everyone should do, because the other thing about advertising too, like in the agency client game, is that it's very jumpy. Like it's very it sort of just jumps, and that's just sort of the nature of the game. Whereas affiliate revenue can be sort of your baseline. So like if you were like going to start a site, I would say keep try and weave, and affiliates don't weave, like we can't put them in the all, like it's just not naturally there. It would probably feel worse than the Next Web. But Wirecutter is a product driven site. It's the best products. You want to know where to buy them, and that's that. So it works. So, and if you can do that in your site, make them work for your audience in a natural way, the revenue is a lot flatter. Which obviously you want it to go that way flat, but it just doesn't it's not jagged.
Hi. You talked about. Oh, right. I'm Glenn. I'm with CodeMeet Print, which is a community all about startups and storytelling. And so, I'm really interested in what you talked about, like the growth and the point you're at, where you're working either directly with brands or wanting to more. Like, what can you tell us a little bit about what attributes, both quantitatively and qualitatively, are interesting about the All Network from like Samsung,
Yeah.
their point of view, or other brands? And also, you talked about the jumpiness of it all. Can you tell us a little bit about how much visibility you get the more your stuff's in demand, like how far out you can sell, or dynamics like that?
Yeah, projections are really hard. So I get so why do audiences work, or why do advertisers work with the all? So it's one about that, because we're not a huge website. So to give you an idea of metrics, I like to say we're big for small sites and we're small for big sites. We're about probably 12 million page views across all of the sites, and probably about 2.5 million uniques across all the sites. So, the Procter and Gambles of the world, we're not going to really get in there. But what we do own is this word that what we own. We don't own it, but maybe that's a weird word. But who we reach is a very specific person that I like to call the intellectual. And so, like, this sort of like coastal person who reads David Foster Wallace, has a great job. I like hipster with a career, perhaps. And so, like, the all has sort of become a real beacon. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. You guys read the all, right? Like, that's the crazy thing. Like, this. If I go home and like hang out with my mom, or I don't know. If I go, like, most people in a room of most people, like maybe 10% have heard of the all. In this room, I would say, I don't. How many people have heard of the all before this? Yeah, so I think it's a solid like 50%, which is pretty awesome. And so when advertisers, the way I like to position it is, if you want to reach the intellectual, this sort of hard to reach person online who's not on your traditional Yahoo, AOL, massive properties, come to us, and like we can help you reach them. And then the second part of the pitch, which I think is really strong, today, and like if you're a niche publisher, this is what you should do, is sort of say like, not only will we help you reach them, we'll help you produce for them. And so like if you want to create great content that's going to resonate with this type of person, we've been doing it the longest. We're proven with this like specific niche, so let us help you do that. And I think that's sort of like the pitch that I want to take to advertisers directly.
Question over here, 1 second.
Kelly Berea from the Urban Thinker magazine. You mentioned earlier that it's possible for people to get around the desire of marketing agencies to have a really big audience's reach. And that, you know, there are brands out there that are really interested in leveraging the brand equity we're able to create. Could you speak a little bit more about that? Like, do you have him, like, based on your experience, what have you seen out there that makes you feel that that's a possibility?
Well, I mean, Inside Climate was a great example, right? Like, Inside Climate does not reach a lot of people, but, you know, the Coca-Cola Facebook page reaches 52 million people. So if Coca-Cola wants to tell all their fans, like, we're serious about helping fix the climate, they're going to partner with Inside Climate, and Inside Climate's going to be able to say, like, oh, well, listen, Coca-Cola, like, we'll produce this sort of stuff for you. You want to syndicate or license our content, like, and you want to put it on your Facebook page, that's fine. So, like, sort of what's, you know, in my mind, what's being disrupted right now, is sort of distribution, you know, to a certain extent. Whereas, like, before, the people who had distribution were, like, the big networks, but now the brands have distribution. So, as a publisher, if you can use, like, your strength and brand equity, you can sort of get in there with your production value, if that makes sense. It's sort of, like, convoluted a little bit, but it's, like, a big thought that I have. So maybe I'll try and express it better next time.
Okay, I think we're going to move on.
All right.
Keep going. Thank you. That was great, John.
Yeah, thank you
Great
for
to have
having
someone
me.
who's got some actual business ability there. So thanks for that. Thanks for bringing that perspective. That's great.